if you want to make sure that you capture memories on your next trip in the most perfect way, or if you want to make sure that anybody you're traveling with knows how to take your photos properly, then this video is for you and for you to send to them as a not so subtle hint that they need a bit of help. Don't worry though, in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down tons of different helpful tips and tricks to make sure you capture the most amazing vacation photos of the landscape, of yourself, of your travel buddies, and you can do it all on your phone. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and this channel is all about practical travel tips from someone who's been there, done that, and taken all the photos. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, be sure to like and subscribe for more. In today's video, I will be using an iPhone for demo purposes because that's just what I use, but all these tips will be applicable to other devices as well. So tip number one is to make sure your lenses are clean. When you're traveling, inevitably, there are going to be times when your lenses get really grubby just from your greasy fingers, from all the amazing food that you're gonna eat, and also just from taking your phone in and out of your pocket. So before you take any photos, make sure your lenses, both on your back camera and on your front selfie camera, are clean. Ideally, you're gonna wanna wipe it off with a microfiber cloth, so something like what comes with your sunglasses, but in a pinch, just any bit of clean fabric will also do the trick. Next, you should know that lighting is absolutely everything when it comes to photos. So when you're in a situation, you're trying to capture the subject, whether that's a person or like a particular monument that you're trying to take a photo of, you want to make sure that the light is shining on the subject and not behind it. Because when the light is behind the subject, that's when you get this backlit effect. And that's when you start to look like a silhouette and you're kind of like in a shadow. You can't really see the details of the subject. That is not what we're going for unless you are artistically striving for a silhouette photo. So make sure that the light is always on the person or the subject that you're taking a photo of, and that is gonna make a world of difference. And if you find yourself in a situation where the light glare is really bad, so the colors look washed out, the details aren't very sharp, a really handy trick is actually you can block out the light just by using your hand. Plus, don't forget that you can adjust the exposure, which is how light your photo is, within the camera of your phone before you even capture that photo. So demonstrating with an iPhone, for instance, what you do is you press down on your camera screen and then you can drag the exposure either up or down, and then that'll make the image darker or brighter. And it's way easier to do this beforehand rather than try to fix it afterwards with editing tools. So be sure to tweak around with the exposure and also with the focus and things like that, and your photos are gonna look way better. Now this ties in well with my next tip, which is in advance of your trip, do familiarize yourself with whichever camera you're using. Because I'll bet for the majority of people, there's functions on this camera that they didn't realize existed. So for me personally, I didn't realize that these different lenses here were different cameras. And so actually with the iPhone, when you are on the camera mode, if you press any of these numbers here with the 0.5 or the 3, and that's when it's gonna kick into a different camera. So for me personally, I've noticed that if I just pinch and zoom as you normally do, if it's at 2.9, it's gonna look really blurry. But as soon as you kick it to 3, that's when it tells the phone, hey, use the telephoto lens instead, and then it's gonna be a lot crisper, a lot sharper. This is actually an older iPhone. This is the iPhone 13 Pro, and so it has the 3x telephoto, and it's so good for capturing details on buildings and architecture, you know, all that. So if you do have a phone with different lenses, do play around with those lenses because it can make a huge, huge difference. Another really underrated tool that a lot of phones have these days is portrait mode. So essentially what portrait mode does is it adds a bit of separation between the subject and the background, which can be really good depending on the effect that you're going for. And even people who are familiar with portrait mode don't always realize that there are different settings within portrait mode as well. So in the iPhone, for instance, you can control the f-stop, which in simple terms kind of controls how blurry that background is gonna look. And you can also choose different types of lighting as well. So be sure to play around with the different functions of your camera before you leave on your trip, because there's really a lot that these things can do these days. Another fun mode is panorama mode, and basically that's just where you can capture either a long photo or you can capture more of the photo by panning up. Of course, there's a lot of fun applications of this. You can have one person stand on one side and then run over to the other side when you are capturing the panorama. It's a bit cheesy, but back in the day, I used to love taking those. In a travel setting though, I think a more practical application is just that if you have a really tall landmark or you have a background that you just can't capture it all in one frame, then you can actually use the panorama mode to kind of like go up and then make sure that you're capturing the entire thing so you're not cutting off the tip of the Eiffel Tower, for instance. These days, that trick is maybe less necessary just because a lot of cameras do have that wide angle function built in, but it is a fun tool to play with. Another really great underutilized tool is live photo. So I don't know if this is exclusive to iPhones. If it is, I apologize, but it is a really cool function that you can just enable with a single tap. And basically what it allows you to do is when you take a photo, it's also going to record a bit of video around that time. So this is great for a few different things. First off, you can get a video clip of the moment, which can often be very fun. It's nice to look back on those memories, but also you can go back and adjust and look at the different frames kind of before after. So let's say if you're blinking, you can kind of toggle it back to the moment before you were blinking and still have a photo of that. That said, I should say that because the live photo is essentially just a video, the quality of the different frame that you choose is not going to be as sharp as just the regular photo that you took. But if you're just doing something for social media, you're posting it on Instagram or an Instagram story, whatever, it's not going to make a huge difference if it's a little bit blurry. Another great thing that live photo can do is it has these extra special functions. So you can do a long exposure, for instance. Most notably for travel purposes, if you're traveling somewhere where it's really busy, you can actually use the live photo long exposure tool to kind of blur the people walking behind you, so long as you stand really still. So to do that, just make sure your live photo is on and then stand still while someone takes a live photo of you, and then you can change the settings to long exposure. And from there, you can see that the people behind you are somewhat blurred, which puts all the focus on you. Now, regardless of which mode you're using, do remember that you should be tapping on the screen where you want to focus. So basically, when you tap on the screen, that's telling your camera, okay, this is the bit that I want to focus on. And so that's going to prevent mistakes like you being out of focus while the background is in focus. So anytime you're taking photos where there's actually quite a bit of separation between you and the background, or between your subject and the background, do make sure you are tapping on the screen to focus it. And also don't be afraid to dig a little bit deeper into your camera's settings. So even with your phone camera, there's actually a lot of things that you can toggle on and off. So with the iPhone, for instance, if you go to settings, camera, you'll see all these options that you've probably never played with before. And one really helpful one is turning on the composition grid. So you just scroll down to where it says composition and click grid. And that's going to add this helpful grid onto your camera. And the reason that can be really helpful is it's just going to help guide you in your composition. You've probably heard about the rule of thirds in photography. So that's just the idea that photos are generally more interesting when you place things kind of on those third grid lines. And this can also be really handy in directing people on how you want your photo framed. But we'll cover that a little bit later. Now, another thing to do when it comes to leveling up your vacation photos is to start looking at other elements in your setting and incorporating those into the photos as well. So like I said before, oftentimes when people are capturing photos, they'll just take their camera out, they'll just capture it like this and not really think about what is in the foreground, what's in the background. But a really great way to kind of elevate your photos is making use of the stuff that's already in front of you. So for me, for instance, anytime I see a flower bush or a tree with leaves or anything, I get so excited because that means I can go and kind of include them in the photo, even blurred out a little bit in the foreground, and that adds a lot of depth to the photo. And anytime I see natural frames, for instance, let's say you've got a nice landmark and there's trees around it or like a bush with like a hole cut out surrounding it, and that can just look so cool. So be on the lookout for natural frames, for things that you can kind of blur and put in the foreground, and that's really going to elevate your photos so much. Another common trick is to look for reflective surfaces, whether that's a puddle or a reflective car. You can create some really interesting and unique photos. So definitely be sure to experiment with that. Now, just as a random final tip before we move into tips for people taking photos of you, if you're ever in a situation when you're traveling and you have a really cool background, like at a viewpoint or there's a cool landmark, but it seems really far away, a really neat trick that you can use to kind of bring that background a bit closer to you, the subject, is by stepping farther away and then using the zoom on your phone. So using the telephoto lens on your phone, for instance, that is going to compress the background a little bit and make it look closer. Don't ask me the mechanics of how that works. I don't really know how to explain it, but it does work really well. Okay, now let's pivot to the section of the video that's all about how to get great photos taken of you. Now, first things first, if you are someone who's very picky about your photos, if you have a specific vision in mind, specific aesthetic, do remember how important it is for you to convey in as much detail as possible what your vision is. So some really helpful directions would be, oh, make sure you get this in the shot, or make sure I'm in the center of the frame, or make sure you don't cut off my feet, make sure my shoes are here, blah, blah, blah. So make sure you are giving as much direction as possible, and also throw in things like what the vibe is as well, so that they know what you're trying to capture. This is where having the grid can be really helpful, because then you can give very objective instructions, like make sure I am in the center line, or make sure that my shoes are in that bottom middle square. Things like that. Another responsibility for you, the person who's getting their photo taken, is to make sure you have some good poses in your repertoire. Now, trust me, no amount of good photography in the world is going to save you if you have zero skills when it comes to posing. And so if you're standing there like a wall, no matter how good the photographer is, it's not going to help you. So make sure in advance of your trip, if you are awkward like me, that you know at least a pose or two that suit you well and that won't make you look ridiculous. When in doubt, just walk it out, laugh, twirl, look around, get them to capture a bunch at once, and one of them will turn out cute. And don't be afraid to use props. So for me personally, I know that my photos always look a million times better if I have a prop, because then I know I don't need to worry about what to do with my hands. So if I've got a drink, I'll hold the drink, or if I've got an ice cream or a sandwich or whatever the prop is, don't be afraid to use props, because they can also help convey a story, which is always nice. Now specifically onto tips for the person capturing the photos. Hi, if someone has sent you this means they think your photos need work, but don't worry, we're gonna help with that. So the first thing, tying into what I was saying before, is to always consider, this is vague, bear with me, to always consider the story of the photo. So as they say, a picture does speak 1,000 words, or whatever. A picture is worth 1,000 words? A picture is, yeah, I don't know what it is, but anyways, you know that saying. And so it is helpful to know in advance what words, what story you're trying to convey with the photo. And I know that sounds like super high level and like, why would you do that for just a random tourist photo? But it is important to consider, because if you're trying to capture someone's wonder at seeing a monument for the first time, then you know you want to get the monument in the shot. In contrast, if the story is your girlfriend looking cute on her way to lunch in Italy, then you know to focus more on the vibe of the photo rather than getting any particular landmarks in the background. And having this story in mind as well can really help you direct, which is my next tip. Don't be afraid to direct. As the person standing in front of the camera, you have no idea what it looks like. And so if we look awkward, we have no idea. So it is important for you, the person capturing the photo, to let us know if we look ridiculous, or if we need to move our arms a little bit, if there's something wrong with our hair, things like that. Those are details that we will not know. So don't be afraid to direct. And be specific as well. Don't just say, oh, you look awkward, because that's not helpful. If we look awkward, tell us why. Say, oh, maybe you should do something with your arms, or maybe you should look this way, laugh, whatever it is. Make sure you are directing, because that's going to be super helpful and also save you a lot of work down the line, because trust me, if they don't like the photo, they will ask you to take it again. Finally, most importantly, get options, okay? When someone asks you to take their photo, it is never just one photo. I assure you they want options. So instead of just taking your phone and going like that, taking a single photo, make sure you put it on burst mode or something, get a bunch. Even you can record a video, and if they're not too fussy about the quality when it's blown up, then they can just take screenshots from that video and use it for things like social media. All in all, get as many options as possible and don't just take the one photo. And very important, do not ever cut out the feet. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video, whether it was against your will or not. And be sure to like and subscribe for more travel videos just like this one. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.